Okay, so to continue on the history of boxing, I figured that I will just do it this way this time. Um, so you guys kind of let me know which way you prefer. I'm going to give you little snippets at a time so I'm not dragging on like an hour-long video that's going to bore you to death. There will be times where it'll be a little bit longer because I'm going to insert pictures and things like that. But as for right now, we're just learning the beginnings. Okay, so if you watch the other video, this is a follow-up to it. Boxing, which was often called the manly art of self-defense, is a sport in which two competitors try to hit each other with their glove-encased fists while trying to avoid each other's blows. Now, I want to say that they did not always wear gloves. They wore leather wraps at times, and there was a period of bare-knuckle boxing, which I'm sure there is still some bare-knuckle boxing going on. It's just underground because we have rules and athletic associations now, unlike back in these days. But says they would hit each other with their glove-encased fists while trying to avoid each other's blows. The competition is divided into a specified number of rounds, usually 3 minutes long, with a 1-minute rest period between rounds. Although amateur boxing is widespread, professional boxing has flourished on an even grander scale since the early 18th century. Now, as far as my notes go, that's all we're going to cover for today. I hope I didn't show you guys. Okay, good. As far as boxing goes, that is all I'm going to discuss at this point. That's kind of giving you a little overhead view of boxing, but I will get into like early, like legit, just 100% early history on things, how they kind of started out like the MMA did with no rules, and then how those rules came about, how many times boxings went back and forth, how there used to not be any rules and you just kind of went until somebody was knocked out or gave up. There was no rounds. I mean, it's pretty crazy some of the things that I've read and some of the reasons why being, oh, well, it's not manly enough and all this other stuff. And then it goes into how we got rounds and how we got weight classes and then how we got into gloves and what they should weigh and the reason why we wear gloves. If you're a hardcore boxing fan or you've boxed yourself, even amateur level, you know what the gloves are for. It's there to protect your hand, not somebody's face. Otherwise, we wouldn't have boxers with, broken noses and busted eyes and black eyes and all that. It's not like, I know some of the strong MMA guys are just like, oh, it's like fine with pillows on your hands. Buddy, I've been hit with those gloves. Like, it doesn't feel as bad as a bare knuckle, but it still hurts. Just less likely to break something on yourself when you throw a punch. I've done both sides of the sport, and I love them both equally for different reasons. And hopefully at some point I can go in and discuss these different reasons with you. And I want everybody to know, considering, sorry, I got cut off, that I'm reading so many sexist comments, and that's not a term that I use a whole lot. I'm not a feminist. They get on my nerves, first and foremost. I'm a tomboy. It's how I was raised. But I have seen comments go as far as women shouldn't be allowed to judge combat sports. Women shouldn't be allowed to judge combat sports, that women can't even be a legit fan of combat sports, that it's not in our DNA. We pretend to like it for whatever stupid reason. They seem to not remember a lot of history, which would show that women were the ones that stayed behind while the men went off to find work and defended the homestead. In Viking history, women went into battle. Joan of Arc. It is in our DNA. It's just that throughout time, they've not necessarily tried to breed it out of us, but they've tried to reprogram our minds to not like that sort of thing. And that's fine. If a woman doesn't like violence, it's fine. I know men that don't like violence. But some of us, it isn't so much the violence as it is just the art of everything that we love. So please don't discredit me just because of my gender when it comes to these things. I've been in the octagon. I've been in a boxing ring. I've been in a wrestling ring. The fact is like when I was in boxing as an amateur, around that time here, the woman had just won the first woman won a Golden Gloves title here, where I live. When I was in Golden Gloves at that point, I was 16 years old. There was me, her, and one other woman. That was it in the whole Golden Gloves organization in this part of my town. She was a full-time teacher. Okay, she won that belt in an amateur Golden Gloves fight against another man. Back then, if you were sparring, if you were competing, you 99.999% of the time had to go against a man. Because 3 women, all 3 of us in different weight classes, and some of us are varied so much that it was just unfair to kind of put us together. So we sparred men. We fought men. Even to this day, with AAU wrestling, and I see it with my own 2 eyes, so don't try to tell me that that's wrong. I see women, little girls, all up to high school girls, going to nationals and winning titles against boys. Because law is, if there's not a female wrestling team, they have to put them on the boys' team. They cannot turn them down. And as my daughter was told, when she started wrestling for the same school that her brother wrestled for, which we only quit that because of the way the coaches were. I think they were very inappropriate with a bunch of little kids. And when you yell at 4-year-olds, and call them pussies, we got a problem. But, yeah, they were like, well, don't expect to be treated any different. She's like, I don't want to be treated any different. When I was wrestling, I always told them, if you treat me any different than you would a dude, I'm going to take that as, like, disrespecting me, and I'm going to get pissed off. I want to be treated just as you treat anybody else. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm a feminist. I'm saying that because, yeah, I put myself in a man's sport. I know that. My daughter knew that. We knew the repercussions of that if something was to happen. If we weren't as good as we thought we would be. We understood that, yeah, we could get hurt. Generally, men are stronger than women, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But with wrestling, technique, a lot of times will overdo strength. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to pay really close attention. So, that was kind of my thing. It wasn't me being a feminist saying, oh, I can do anything a man can do. I'm just strong as a man. Physically, I know men are stronger than me. I'm not stupid, but I'm also stronger than I look. But beside the point, I know most men, my age, my weight may be stronger than me. Some may not be, but, usually men are stronger. But, with stuff like that, it's all about technique. There are ways to control a person by pitting down the strongest parts of their body with your entire body weight, and then you can kind of control them, and that's what that is. And that's why judo, I think, is a great thing for younger girls to learn, because you don't have to be a big person to properly execute judo moves. Yes, I know Ronda Rousey was like the queen of judo, but it seems to me that she had just a couple of throws and an arm bar in her arsenal. She was great while she lasted, but again, that's all I've ever seen from her. Her hands were ridiculous. Looking at her on bags and stuff, she looked okay, but when she got in the octagon, her hands were shit. She's got, one TK, like one knockout. That's all I remember. It could be more, but she's kind of a distant memory for me. Her attitude really ruined me, because even in, AAU wrestling, we tell them, there's no winners and no losers. There's winners, and then there is learning. Because we learn more from our losses than we do our wins. But anyway, please don't discredit me because of my gender. I am not pretending that I like something just to be cool. I'm not pretending that I like something just because. This has been a legit love of mine since I was a child. It comes from a bonding experience with my father. And from there, I just became obsessed with every aspect of all of combat sports, including just martial arts, period. Boxing, MMA, it's all fascinating to me. Just because you can see people of such different sizes come together and everybody wants to bet on the bigger person, but that's not always the person that wins. It's the person with the best technique. And techniques and styles make fights. And you'll hear that from some of the greatest when it comes to bookers and fight makers and stuff. Styles make fights. It's like Ronda Rousey couldn't get beat by anybody until Holly Holmes came around. Holly Holmes was new to the UFC. She was ranked at number 8. And she took out Ronda Rousey, a woman that had a total time in the ring that wasn't even a full fight, if I remember that correctly. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But she took her out, round 2? It was style. Ronda didn't know what to do with her. She was too quick. She was an ex-boxer, ex-kickboxer, came over to UFC. She fought more like a boxer, something Ronda's not used to. So that's what they mean when they say style make fights. Holly didn't get to defeat the title but one time. But then again, Misha never could beat Ronda, but she beat Holly. But then again, she lost it to, oh God, and I hate her so bad, Amanda Nunes, who I think is becoming one of the cockiest women's fighters that we've seen. I think she's even outdoing Ronda. I do think that she was originally afraid of that chick she just fought. What is her name? Valentino. That was the reason why she canceled the first fight. She was medically released by doctors, so under my circumstances, she should have been fighting, and I would have fined her, if I was in the position to do so. When there's medically nothing wrong with you that the doctors can find that should keep you from fighting, then you fight. I've had major sinus problems. I have had major sinus surgery, and I tell you what, if I was due to be making, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 just to go in there and punch some chick for 5 rounds, dude, I'd have been there and done it and then worried about my shit later. And I personally feel like that Amanda lost that fight. But again, that goes back to scoring. And Misha did make a point that the whole thing is to be the champion, you got to beat the champion. Maybe she didn't really beat the champion, that she was just more on par, like equal with the champion. That she needed to just be a hair better than maybe she would have won. I can see where that comes from, but at the same time, too, we have scoring for a reason. I know MMA scores a little different from boxing, and it's a little bit harder for me to score an MMA fight accurately, but I'm smart enough to look at a fight and pretty much tell you who won. I'm not saying that I'm always right, because I really think that scoring is more of an opinion unless you sit there and you're able to watch every little steal of something. Even what I understand, going back to the Mayweather-McGregor fight, that Bird chick or whatever her name is, my friend is bugging me saying that I need emus. I hate emus. Anyway, they said they were going to sit down with her, make her watch the fight little by little and score it as she sees it that way, and watch it and see what she's doing wrong. I think she should be suspended until all of this is sorted out, but that's my opinion. But just because she's a piece of shit when it comes to that stuff, the rest of us are not that way. And yes, it is in our DNA to like violence. That's why a lot of women like some of the men that they do that may not be the best for them, is because they see them as this violent, crazy person that would protect them. I like being able to protect myself. Probably hence why I love, fighting. Not necessarily legal fighting now because I'm a parent, but, somebody called me up today and said, hey, we can have you set up with a fight tomorrow. Would you do it? Unless it was somebody insane. Yeah, I would. But anyway, yeah, please don't discredit me just because of that. I am not her, and I hope to prove to you guys that not all of us are that stupid. So please let me give you that chance. Bye. I'm not trying to zoom. I want to stop. Oh my God, this is making me